to take a cement fix, be a standing cinema. Dress my friends up just for show, see them as they really are. Put the people in my brain, tune your pens to have a go. I'd like to be a gallery, put you all inside my show. Hello everyone, it's Dana Gillespie here. We're doing Globetrotting with Gillespie, and we're in the Tam Fusion restaurant, which is part of the Temple of Art and Music, but it's in this huge deconsecrated church, if that's the right word. I think maybe unconsecrated, in Mercato Metropolitano, Mercato Mayfair. And it's one good thing about getting older is that you get to go down memory lane with somebody that you've known for years, which is the case of my next guest. I'd like you to meet Laurence Myers.
Hello, and indeed we have known each other for many years.
Since, I think, 1970.
1970,
But
and
now,
hopefully for many years to come.
Hopefully, yes, if we're still breathing and not pushing up daisies. Now, we'll get to 1970 in a minute, because Laurence has been part of the music business forever, but I want to know, how did you start in the music business? As what?
I started in the music business because I became a chartered accountant. I didn't want to become a chartered accountant, but when I was 16 and I was leaving school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my Jewish mother gave me the Jewish mother's list, which you can be a doctor, a dentist, and the accountant was the last one.
So
and underneath that was, you'll be a hairdresser. I didn't want to do that, so I said, I'll be an accountant. And I started work, I think in 1952, for 75p a week, 15 shillings a week, which even then was not a lot, but it paid for my fare from Finsbury Park Tube to the office in Holborn and a lunch.
Well, you know.
So I became an accountant and I hated it.
Right.
I was no good at it. I was articled to a firm, gave me no training, and when I qualified eventually, having failed my exams many times, I eventually qualified. I thought I will never hold down a job, so I started my own practice. I found another young man who had a suit, dark suit, two dark suits. And he went to public school, so I thought, well, he's a proper accountant. And we went into practice, and what happened was we got Mickey Most as a client.
Well, Mickey Most, everyone who's older knows who he is. Tell me the names that Mickey had. He had huge hits with everybody.
Mickey Most,
Herman's Hermits,
Donovan, Herman's Hermits, Lulu, Jeff Beck, Donovan. I mean, he was to this day one of the best ever producers of pop records.
Is he still alive?
No, he died. He was going to live forever, he told me, but he didn't. He died about 10 years ago now.
Well, now, I first met you in the offices in Regent Street, where
Yes.
you had all these famous songwriters.
But that was after I quit. What happened in 1970? Oh, and because of Mickey and I got all these people, I also got the Rolling Stones.
That's not a bad thing to get.
And they were in between managers and they didn't have an office. So for, I think it was the year 68, for a year, the Rolling Stones office was based in my accountancy offices. I gave them an office.
But this wasn't the Regent Street one?
No, well, it was Regent Street, but a different address.
Okay.
And Alan Klein, who you knew.
Alan Klein,
who you
indeed.
knew very well.
Yes.
Alan Klein, who you knew, took them over, and I got them as clients. So I had the Rolling Stones, and I had Zeppelin. So I became, through those people, through accountancy, even though I hated it, I became known in the music business because you're as good as the people you represent. That enabled me in 1970 to quit practice and go into the music business.
And then, of course, my memories of going into the offices when you were in Regent Street is that you seemed to have little rooms with people like Tony McCauley and all these songwriters.
I was very impressed, during my previous incarnation as an accountant to all these wonderful people. I spent time at the Brill Building in New York, which, for those who don't know it, is the music business centre of New York, and Lieber and Stoller and
Carole King,
Goffin, they were all there. So when I quit practice, I had the idea of taking, not the Brill Building, which was 11 stories, I took a suite of offices with some spare offices, the idea being I would just get people to come and sit in the offices and create my own little Brillet building. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did.
Well, yeah, you could walk through. I mean, of course, you also had the early incarnation of Gary Glitter working there. But he made great shows.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
perhaps I shouldn't have mentioned it.
No. Listen, this was 20 years. I was very involved with Gary through Mike Leander, but it was 20 years before he came out as being an unacceptable person to mention, which he is, frankly.
But with it's history, so there would be everybody in your offices, and that's when somehow you met Tony DeFries, who went on for the Bowie thing. Yeah, Bowie, let's go on to Bowie.
So when I was an accountant, there was a lawsuit, and inevitably there's somebody I was representing, and there was a firm called Martin Boston Company Lawyers that we recommended. I think it was for Mickey Mouse. And Tony DeFries was working for them as a legal clerk, and that's how I knew him.
Right.
And then I quit practice in 1970, and shortly thereafter I got a call from David saying...
David being Bowie?
No, sorry.
By the way, move in because the lighting is better when your face is forward.
Oh, what a face.
Yes.
No, Tony DeFries came to see me to say that he'd left law,
right,
and he was now sort of really dealing, managing people, and he'd met David Bowie because David was signed to Philips Records and was being managed by Ken Pitt,
right,
and he wanted to leave, and he had asked, Angie was the driving force. Angie is very much, I think, undervalued in her contribution to David's...
Not by me and not by you,
no,
and not by people that knew
really
the story.
I mean, without him, she was one, she drove it all.
Yes.
So she said, you've got to get out your contract. Tony DeFries, as a lawyer, said, I can get you out the contract. You need a manager. Why don't you come and see Laurence Myers, who's just started and he's been very successful, and he believed in me, etc. So he sold David on the idea of coming to me, and he also said, if you want to sign him, I'd like to come and work with you to look after David. And I liked that idea. Two reasons. I actually liked David Bowie's songs. I was not at the time, I'm not embarrassed to say, impressed with him as a working artist, because, to be discussed later if you wish, but I quite like the idea of having Tony work with me as an in-house lawyer. So I wanted him almost as much as I wanted Bowie, and that's how it happened. And David had one album out on The Man Who Fell to Earth, on the Philips label, where the cover was him in a dress.
Oh, wasn't that Hunky Dory? I get confused.
No, it wasn't.
All right, okay.
And it had failed, so we couldn't get a record deal. So I paid for the making of what became known as the Bowie promo, which had songs by David and by you.
David on one side, me on the other.
And
how many did you press? Was it 300 or 500?
I have no idea. All I know is that
you threw them.
I threw them all out. I mean, why wouldn't I? I got a deal with RCA Records, and I probably had a shelf full of those demos by David and a lot of other artists, and when I needed space I would have moved. I'd made the deals, so I threw them out.
I think they're about $5,000 a go now.
$10,000 was a lot.
I've got one under my bed.
Really? An original?
Yes, an original. Because I think I actually did the writing on the white cover. Occasionally at gigs somebody comes up to me with a bootleg and says, can you sign this?
Well, on Record Day, a few years ago, they they replicated it 100% as it was. And my son bought me one as a present. It cost him 50 quid. So,
Well, that's kind of how it is. Well, I do know a funny story, though, that my pal Tris Penner told me that you said to him, he came to talk to you about a BBC thing, and he said, weren't you interested in Bowie and Starman? And you said, no, you were too busy with the New Seekers.
possible.
I think
It's
that's
possible.
hilarious.
It's possible. But when I said, I didn't rate Bowie as a performer, I actually took my wife Marsha with me. We went to see him at Aylesbury.
Oh, Aylesbury gig, yeah.
A couple of hundred people.
Yeah.
No interest whatsoever. Never really kept it. It stood there, and I was saying to Marsha, get hold of his guitar. Why doesn't he get hold of his guitar? He's just standing there flapping his arms. And it was not until he went into character when suddenly he became Ziggy and the whole thing just took off.
I've always thought that Bowie was far better as a performer when he was doing a character.
Yes.
The moment he was him, he wasn't kind of that good. I mean,
Well, it's like an actor, you could admire an actor enormously, but when they're not on screen, I brought Gene Wilder over, the wonderful comic actor, to do a play for me. And I said to him, Gene, will you do all the couches, all the chat shows and the play? He said, I will, but I'm really very boring. You give me lines and I'm very confident I will make people laugh. Give me the lines, I will deliver the laughs, and I will be entertaining and wonderful. I'm a very boring man.
well, that's often the case. Now, but just for 1 second with Bowie,
Yes.
I'm holding this up
Please
because
do.
Laurence has written this fabulous book. I think it's
Laurence is
wonderful. Go for it. Are those the vegetarian ones or the?
I have no idea. They're very
We'll
nice.
start with
Very
Hunky
nice.
Dory. Who knew?
I recommend come to the Tam restaurant. Wonderful food.
But this book is great because I love a good book, and it's full of great stories. But you're not only music business, because I know I met you at the shooting, the screening of the Judy Garland film with Renee Zellweger, and you had something, and you've done musicals. And
After
Tell us what
in
you've done.
1980, I won't say I gave up the music business. The music business gave me up,
yeah.
and I went into theatre, which I'd always loved, and since then I have produced theatre. Today's News, hot off the press, which has only just come out. I'm co-producing Bake Off, the musical, which is coming to the Noel Tower Theatre in Shaftesbury Avenue, London's finest, in February of next year.
Who's playing who in Bake Off? Or has that got nothing to do with you?
No, it has, but the star is the show. The star is Bake Off, so we haven't
Okay.
got stars.
Fantastic. Will it? I hope the audience will be able to eat some of the food.
No real food. So anyway, so in theatre, I produced a show called End of the Rainbow with the wonderful Tracy Bennett playing Judy Garland, and we took it to Broadway, which was for a little boy from Finsbury Park was an unbelievable thrill, and I got the film rights. So ultimately, I got it made into a film.
I know you did a musical that was a total disaster.
Oh,
wasn't
many.
It? Toreador.
Matador.
Matador, sorry, I knew it was the sort of... But it's a great idea.
It was a great idea about El Cordobes, the 60s bullfighter,
Yeah.
who was known as the New Beetle.
He was a star in his
A
day.
huge star.
So if you could take a choice between looking after musicians or putting on a musical, obviously a musical now wins. They're probably less hassle, aren't they?
Oh no, they're not. Believe me,
Really?
no. Putting on a musical. The first thing I ever did, I was not a producer. I was in the music business. And Mike Leander, who you
I
remember
know
well,
Mike Leander, yes. He produced Marianne Faithfull on a lot of things, yes.
He did. And and Glitter, of course.
Yay!
So Mike Leander came to me. He'd been living in Mallorca. He said, "I've written this musical score, and it's called Matador." And he played me the music, and it was wonderful. Is there a book? No, don't worry about the book. So I knew. So I said, we have to find a producer. So I called Cameron McIntosh, and he called me back immediately. And I said, "Well, thank you so much for calling me back." He said, you were very nice to me. Do you remember? I said, no. Well, many years ago, this is Cameron Mackintosh. I was producing Robin Hood, the pantomime.
Right.
And I wanted Gary Glitter to play Robin Hood.
It would have been fabulous.
So I came to see you, and you quite rightly turned me down, but you were very, very nice. So that's why I returned your call. So he was busy. He was busy with this something called Les Miserables, terrible idea for a musical. And he
I auditioned for that and didn't get the part. But then Bowie and I auditioned for Hair and we didn't get the part either.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So he was too busy. So I thought, I don't know what. So I called Don Black.
Yes.
The lyricist, Andrew Lloyd Webber's lyricist, and Tony Award winner.
After Tim Rice.
Oscar winner, everything winner. And he said, I said, I'm looking for a producer for a musical. He said, aren't we all, love? Because he's very funny. And to cut a long story short, he was sitting with Adam Faith, and he said, we want to do a musical of Adam Faith of Alfie, because he'd done it on stage.
Yeah.
So I said, no. So I said, well, if you think of anyone, call me. And Don being Don, I put the phone down. 2 minutes later, phone rang. Laurence says, Don, pencil and paper. Who do you suggest? He said, Laurence Myers. He said, you could produce a musical. So that's how I became a producer of musicals. And I have to tell you, producing a West End musical for the first time is like saying, I quite like the idea of being a doctor, so I'll do a bit of brain surgery and see if I like it. So that's how I got into musicals.
Well, I want to thank you, Laurence, for coming into Tam Fusion, because we're now going to have some lunch. I advise everyone to buy this book.
Thank you, darling.
And Laurence, I'd like to come and interview you again when it's Bake Off the musical gets kicking, February?
February.
And you said the Noel Coward...
The Noel Coward Theatre.
Well, I'm pleased Noel Coward gets a mention.
Yeah. Not announced yet.
So but I'm most upset that there's no Lionel Bart, a theatre in London. I mean, that's a scandal.
There should be. I managed Lionel for a while.
Oh, we all love Lionel.
And we all love Lionel. And I was the one that had to tell him he had to go bankrupt. And it was the worst business conversation I've ever had in my life.
Well, there should be a blue plaque on the wall.
There should be a statue.
Yeah, well, he was
in the middle of
marvellous.
Leicester Square. There should.
And he was when he did go bankrupt, if he walked past, he used to be given, I think Cameron maybe, I'm not sure who gave him, 50 quid a week he was allowed. And he put it was before 50 quid notes were around, he put it in his pocket, and on day one, and it had to last for the whole week, if he passed some beggar on the street who was saying, I've got no money, he'd just say, oh, take that, man. Then he'd have to go for the rest of the 6 days with no dosh. Yeah. He was a great guy.
Unbelievable.
Anyway, we're about to start having our lunch, because we've got pumpkin and lobster coming along.
We'll get rid of this.
Yeah, no.
And we'll get hold of this.
Buy it. We'll get rid of that in a different sense. So Laurence Myers, producer, everything extraordinaire, and you were at the book launch as well the other day for Will Hodgkins, and all these songs from those days. Hang on, clear the decks. Food is coming in.
Wow.
Get our priorities right. Thank you everyone for watching me and Laurence having a chin wag, and we'll do another one when Bake Off the musical hits town. Okay. I will be there.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Oh, well, not goodbye. Hang on. Our 2-star Michelin chef, John Burton Race, is going to come in and... he's down on his knees. Shouldn't we give him a chair?
You didn't have to do that.
I was hoping for a knighthood.
Well, if it was up to me, you would have one.
You're going to explain what you've just made for us.
So basically, this is spiced lobster and pumpkin soup made with fresh native lobsters, shells, obviously pumpkin because it's seasonal, and so it's a fusion dish, which is slightly different to what you probably had at Cloisters, because we're fusion here. So we've got coconut milk as the base, as opposed to cream or a velouté or a bisque. So it's shells, basically coconut milk, lime, lemongrass, pumpkin and lobster.
It looks delicious. I'm sure it's
a lobster slipper.
Yeah.
Thank
hope
you,
you
John.
enjoyed.
Thank
We're
you.
going to tuck in.
Enjoy, sir.
And I
Thank
don't
you.
think it's good to be filmed eating because it always looks a bit kind of naff with one's mouth full. So once we've got spoons, we can get going.
There you are, there's a spoon. I found
Goodbye,
it.
everyone. Till next time. Andy Warhol looks a scream, hanging on my wall. Andy Warhol, silver screen, can't tell them apart at all. Andy walking, Andy tired, Andy takes a little snooze. Tie him up when he's fast asleep, send him on a pleasant cruise. When he wakes up on the sea, he's sure to think of me and you. He'll think about paint and he'll think about